Traditional grammar, the collection of prescriptive rules and concepts about the structure of language that is commonly taught in school. So it got that when we talk about traditional grammar, we mean prescriptive rules. What are these prescriptive rules? That you cannot end a sentence with a preposition. You cannot use a double negative in a sentence. You cannot start a sentence with a conjunction, and there are a lot more rules which we have to follow when we are working under this very term, traditional grammar. And second thing, that this is the grammar, or this is the type of grammar that is used in school. So school children all over the world have to learn this traditional grammar. They may be living in Pakistan, may be living in even English-speaking country. There are some traditional grammars which are being taught in schools. So largely based on the principles of Latin grammar, not on current linguistic research in English. So the main difference between the linguist and the traditional grammarians is that this traditional grammar is not according to the latest use of the language or any language, for example, English language. And all these rules that we have just talked about, not starting a sentence with a conjunction, not ending a sentence with a preposition, and you must use a nominative case after the verb to be. You cannot say it's me, you must say it's I. And there are so many, as I said, example of traditional grammar. So all these rules which are applicable on English language have been taken from the Latin grammar. They have been passed on to the English-speaking people by the Latin grammar. So there is a reaction against these rules. The traditional grammar focuses on the distinction between what some people do with language. For example, they always look up to some authorities, how they use language, right? So they then suggest the coming generations to use in the same way. What they ought to do with it according to a pre-established standard. So it is a prescriptive approach because it prescribes rules to use. It tells that use this and don't use that. So it has already a pre-established formula, pre-established notion about the use of language. The chief goal of the traditional grammarian is perpetuating a historical model of what supposedly constitute proper language. I mean, they want to enliven the notion of the past, that this is how English grammar was used and this is how one should use English grammar. They have certain terms which are even used by the linguist, the term article, adjective, noun that we use to label grammatical category. All these parts of speech or the terms that we use have been passed on to us by the Latin grammar or the traditional grammar. Latin and Greek were actually considered to be the languages of philosophy, religion, scholarship and knowledge. So it is thought that if we learn grammar, we will develop characteristic or qualities to understand these philosophical subjects. The grammar of these languages were taken to be the model for other grammarians. So under the influence of traditional grammarians, it was supposed to all people that they must follow these rules which have been designed and devised by the Latin and Greek grammarians. Some characteristics of traditional grammar mechanics: proper punctuation, that we must use proper punctuation within a sentence, colon, comma, wherever, quotes, all these punctuation marks should properly be used. Sentence structure, I mean, how the sentence is formed. There is a subject and then we have a predicate. Predicate may consist of simple words or maybe complex, and there must be an agreement between the subject and the predicate. So let's talk about diction and parts of speech. It says that we must use language or word or expressions that have communicative value, that are understandable to other, right? And we must use parts of speech accordingly, because in a sentence structure there are the parts of speech have their properties which determine where they are to be used and where they are not to be used. Style, spelling, that we must follow a consistent spelling. If our spellings are not correct, we won't be able to communicate properly. So the best known terms from the traditions are those used in prescribing the parts of speech. So in language, these terms, parts of speech, are the legacy of the traditional grammar, and still they are used, and still a lot of people trying to learn language are busy learning and busy understanding their proper use.